What's up, y'all? Welcome back to 7th grade science. I hope you're having an awesome night. I'm recording this at about 8:25. I just finished eating dinner. I had some rice and beans. It was very good. Very good meal. So today, if you are at this station, you are taking notes on food chains. Food chains are our big idea. This whole box right here, you should see the exact same thing in front of you. I took the graphical organizer, printed it off my computer, gave it to you. I am looking at that on my computer right now. We should have the exact same thing. As I type, I want you all to be putting down the exact same things that I type. If I'm typing too quick, stop the video. All right? I tried to make the volume a little bit better, so hopefully this is working. I'll listen to it before I upload it. Hopefully we have good volume because I know that's something we struggled with last time. So back to our topic. We're talking about food chains today. Those diagrams that show you how energy flows throughout an ecosystem. Before we can start that, we need to understand a couple words about ecosystems. So this first one right here, abiotic factors. We learned this in 6th grade. These are non-living parts of an ecosystem. I want y'all right now to pause the video, try to generate about 2 to 3 abiotic factors or non-living parts of an ecosystem and write them in your box. We'll go over a few after the break. Go ahead and pause and give that a shot. All right, now that you are back, hopefully you have tried these on your own. I'm going to give you 3 abiotic factors we're going to reference during class. The first is rocks. Rocks are out in ecosystems. They are important. They give the ground some sort of order. They hold things into the earth, but they are not living. Second thing, I'm going to put water. Any body of water, really. Could be a lake, stream, river. Water, very important for ecosystems. It is not alive. Third thing I am going to put here, will be the sun. The sun, very important for our ecosystem. It is not living. All right, I'm scooting down here. We are now dealing with biotic factors. Biotic factors are living parts of an ecosystem. Abiotic factors were non-living. Biotic are living. I'm going to type 3 examples here in a minute. Again, please pause the video. Try to write 2 or 3 of your own. After the break, I'll give you my examples. Pause it and give this a shot. All right, now that you are back, I'm going to list my 3 biotic factors or living parts of an ecosystem. The first I'm going to list is plants. Plants do a ton of stuff. They interact with the sun, create energy through photosynthesis. We're going to talk about that down below. Plants are a vital part of an ecosystem. They are living. Secondly, I'm going to put animals. Animals include you and me. We are animals. We are living things often that move around on Earth. We are another very important part of an ecosystem. Finally, I want y'all to put bacteria. Bacteria is something we don't talk about very often, but bacteria is very small life. Very, very small life. It is everywhere. That's why I wanted to include that one. All right, coming down to our third and final box, I'm just going to type my own examples here because I don't think you need to generate your own. Generating your own examples is a great way to get ready to learn. It primes your brain to understand what I'm about to tell you. But in the sake of time, I'm just going to give you the example here. So I gave you a definition of an ecosystem. It is a biological community of interacting organisms and their physical environment. I'll list a few examples. One would be a forest. I want you to ride along with me. Forest is an ecosystem. It has high trees, green shrubs. Floors are covered with small animals, small bushes. That's characteristics of a forest. A very different ecosystem is a desert. I want y'all to put desert. Desert is a unique ecosystem. This is one very different from the forest. Doesn't have trees, doesn't have shrubs. It has a lot of dust, has a lot of sand, has a lot of emptiness. Desert is a different ecosystem. Finally, go ahead and put a city where you and I live right outside these windows, Fort Worth, Texas. This is an ecosystem as well. Humans have just made many changes to the ecosystem. We built huge buildings, bridges. Still an ecosystem, just a different one, all right? We're going to skip this middle part because we need a few more words to fill in this part of our organizer. We're going to go to the bottom. So we just talked about abiotic, biotic factors, and an ecosystem. Now, look down here. I should have just highlighted on your screen. It says autotrophs and producers. These are organisms that make their own food, usually through photosynthesis. I'm going to bold, and I want you to underline make their own food. That is the most important part of this line. Autotrophs make your own food. You can think auto, automatic, make their own, if that helps you remember. Because these organisms create their own food through photosynthesis, I want you to write in all caps, plants. Autotrophs are plants. They take the sun energy, make it into food through photosynthesis. That starts off our food chain. You should have bolded or underlined make their own food and written in plants. That is the autotroph or the producer. Now I'm highlighting the heterotroph or the consumer. This is a type of organism that eats its food. So let's read our definition. Get the energy they need to survive by consuming other organisms. Please go ahead and underline consuming other organisms. Autotrophs make their own food. I just highlighted that again. Heterotrophs consume other organisms. There are 4 types of heterotrophs. The first 3 are very important. I have just bolded the first 4 letters of the word herbivore. Oops, a little trouble. I want you to underline those. H-E-R-B. I missed my B. Herbivores are things that feed only on producers or plants. So if you're an herbivore, you aren't eating other animals. You are just eating plants. I want you to come over to omnivore. Underline the O-M-N. This starting, look, it looks the exact same as herbivore, except it says omnivore. It starts differently, different prefix. An omnivore feeds on producers and consumers. It eats both. It eats plants and animals. You and I are omnivores. When you eat corn or any sort of vegetable, that is you eating a producer. When you eat meat or any sort of beef, chicken, you are eating an animal. So we are omnivores, you and me. Finally, come over here and underline carn in the word carnivore. This prefix means you only eat animals. So you don't eat any plants. Don't eat any plants. We are not carnivores. We are omnivores. As long as you've ever eaten a vegetable, you are an omnivore. Finally, down here we have decomposers. I just highlighted it. My screen went crazy. Decomposers. We're not going to focus as much on decomposers in 7th grade, but in 9th grade you'll learn a lot about them. They are responsible for feeding on dead organisms and restarting this whole process. So once energy travels all the way up the chain and the top animal dies, the decomposer breaks it back down for the plants. Don't worry so much about that, all right? Where I do want your focus now is in the box that says grass. I'm going to type a couple of words. I'm going to give you an example, then I'm going to have you try on your own. So underneath grass, I want you to write autotroph. I'm just using my notes down here. Organisms that make their own food through photosynthesis. Grass is a plant. That means it's on autotroph. Autotroph is the same thing as a producer, so please write producer. Grass is an autotroph and a producer. Finally, I want you to come down here and put a blank. Just write a straight horizontal line. You're going to see why. We're not going to put anything there, and it's going to matter. Next, come over to the ladybug. So this arrow right here represents the flow of energy. I want you all to write in this space right here. I can't type there, I'm sorry. Right where I'm moving my mouse, I want you all to write flow of energy. F-L-O-W of energy. The arrows show you how the energy is flowing. So the energy that the grass gets from the sun flows into the ladybug. How does it get there? The ladybug eats the grass. So go ahead and write heterotroph. Because I said the ladybug eats the grass, it's consuming another organism. That means it's not an autotroph anymore. It is a heterotroph. It's a special sort of heterotroph. We have 4 kinds. Again, we're focusing on the first 3. Because the ladybug eats a producer or a plant, it is an herbivore. I want you to write heterotroph and herbivore. Finally, down here where we put our line, I want you to write primary consumer. The primary consumer is the first thing to eat the producer. The ladybug directly eats a plant. Because it eats the plant, the thing that is the producer, it is the primary or the first consumer. We're going to do one more together. We're going to do rat. Rat, it gets its energy from the ladybug. The arrow is pointing this way. That means the rat, where my mouse is, gets its energy from the ladybug. That means it's a heterotroph, folks. Heterotroph. It eats another animal to get its energy. It's a heterotroph. Now I just said something very important. It eats another animal. If I check my reference sheet, I see that carnivores feed on animals. So the rat is a carnivore. And everything after this is going to be a carnivore too. There's only animals left. The only animal here eating a plant is the ladybug. That's why we labeled it an herbivore. Come right down here and write secondary consumer. I think we're starting to see a pattern. The rat is a secondary consumer because it eats the ladybug. What is the ladybug? It's a primary consumer. That is because the ladybug eats the grass. We'll do one more and you will completely see that pattern. Come over to the snake. The snake, watch my mouse. The snake gets its energy from the rat. That means it's getting its energy from a bug. You know that makes it a heterotroph. Heterotroph. It's eating an animal. That means we are not an omnivore. We are not an herbivore. We are a carnivore. Finally, the word that you're going to put here is tertiary consumer. Again, if I'm going too quick, pause the video, copy what you need to. This is a tertiary consumer because that just means third. The third consumer eats the second consumer, which eats the first consumer. That first consumer is the one eating the producer. Final blank, the vulture. The vulture is eating the snake. So the vulture is a heterotroph. If it's not eating a plant, if it isn't a plant, it's a heterotroph. It's eating a snake. That means it's eating an animal that is a carnivore. Finally, I'm going to leave this blank down here again. You can go ahead and put a line. My line's a little low. Once we get above tertiary consumer, we don't usually keep naming them. So you'll never have to name something beyond the tertiary consumer. There's not a special name for the fourth one. Tertiary consumer is where we stop naming things. I'm going to review. So if you need to go back to any part of the video you feel uncertain of, go back. Use that because in the other stations, you will use your knowledge to complete the work. We talked about this top stuff. I'll review. What is abiotic or non-living? What is biotic or what is living? And what's an ecosystem? This is basic stuff. Then we jumped down here. We said an autotroph is something that makes its own food. Autotrophs are automatic. They make their own food. They're also called producers. These are always, in 7th grade science, plants. Heterotrophs, or consumers, are the opposite of autotrophs, or producers. These animals get their energy by consuming other organisms. They don't make their own food. They consume other organisms. If you are a heterotroph, you could be an herbivore. That means you feed only on producers. That was our ladybug. The ladybug gets its energy from the grass. If you're an omnivore, we didn't have an omnivore in our example, but you feed on producers and consumers. If you're an omnivore, you'd have to have two lines because you'd have to be eating an animal and you'd have to be eating the grass or the plant. You'll see this today during the card sort activity. If you were a carnivore, you feed other consumers, you eat other animals. That is the rat because it eats the ladybug. That is the snake because it eats the rat. And that is the vulture because it eats the snake. Finally, we talked a little bit about decomposers, which has now been cut off my screen. You don't need to focus on that so much. All right, we are all set here. Fantastic job. If you need to review any part of the video and there's time remaining, go ahead and do that. Otherwise, check the board for instructions on what is next. Awesome job, y'all.